We do want to bring in trial attorney John Fishwick, now former U.S. attorney for the Western District of Virginia. John, we appreciate you being on this. And we know Trump has these 30 days to appeal. What is the next step? How soon can he file for that appeal?
Natasha, I think likely the appeal will be filed within 30 days of the July 11th sentencing. I think all focus for the Trump legal team now will be preparing for that sentencing. I think the Bragg team is going to ask to put him in prison. I think it's highly unlikely that he gets any prison time, but they're going to ask for it. But after he is sentenced on July 11th, he'll have 30 days to appeal. I think the appeals are going to take a number of years. The Trump legal team has a number of strong points with those legal appeals. And I expect this case to go on for years.
Wow, for years. And you say there are a number of strong points. What are the strongest grounds you believe Trump has for an appeal here?
So, Natasha, I think one of the strongest is it's always been a little unclear what is the felony that the former president was charged with. The jury was given the option to kind of check a box as to what they thought the felony was. They had a cafeteria plan. Was it to avoid the election disclosure laws on the amount of a contribution? Was it a tax law violation? Was it a violation when Cohen filled out the bank record? So I think the Trump legal team is going to say it's been amorphous what the felony is, and they're going to object to that on appeal. I think they're also going to say, hey, look, Stormy Daniels talked about a lot of salacious details that she claimed were true, but that really biased the jury against us. And so we're going to ask the Court of Appeals to throw the case out. So they'll throw the kitchen sink at the other side on the appeal. And I think they have a number of strong points.
Okay. I want to ask you about jury instructions, because specifically we saw Trump saying that they will, quote, go down as the most biased and unfair in judicial history. And I'm hoping we can pull this up. Before the verdict actually came down, he posted on Truth Social, quote, the jury instructions given by the highly conflicted judge were unfair, misleading, inaccurate, and unconstitutional. He says they were also very confusing, in parentheses, just what the judge wanted, because there was no crime. What exactly in these instructions is he referring to that he would say virtually guarantees a guilty verdict?
Well, Natasha, I think what he's referring to there is that the jury was allowed to not have to agree on what the felony was. They could pick on their own what they thought it was, and they could have disagreements on it. Some could say it was to avoid disclosure of contributions in a political campaign. Others could say, well, he was trying to avoid taxes. And so there was not a unanimity requirement on that. In other words, it's a tenet of our law that jury verdicts have to be unanimous. And on the felony aspect of the jury instructions, the jury did not have to be unanimous on what they thought the felony was. And the former president has probably also complained about it. I mean, it was a lengthy jury charge, and the jurors were not allowed to have it in writing. They had to come into the court and had it read to them. And so I think the former president is saying that was confusing as well. But I think on the felony charge, he's saying it was very confusing and unfair, and that'll be a big part of the appeal.
You know, and we know the judge read back to the jury portions of Michael Cohen's testimony, along with that of David Pecker, former publisher for the National Enquirer. What testimony from the trial do you think ultimately resonated with the jury the most? That was the tipping point for them as they were deliberating?
Yeah, Natasha, I think the tipping point was when they started their deliberations. They asked the judge to read the testimony from the August 2015 meeting at Trump Tower, where Cohen, Pecker, and the former president attended that meeting. And the prosecution's theory of the case is that's when they came up with their catch and kill program, where they wanted to keep unfavorable stories out of the press and use illegal means to cover them up. And so when the jury asked to hear that testimony of Pecker and Cohen, I think that was good news for the prosecution team and bad news for the Trump legal team. And that turned out to be the case.
John Fishwick, really appreciate the expertise and time this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.